What is going on, guys? Welcome to the vlog. Today we have some deadlifts. I'm with my buddy Ron here, who I actually met through social media, Power Social Media. Ron, what is your story? Where are you from?
All right, so I am originally from Nevada. Went to college up in Reno and pretty much been lifting for about 7 years or so.
Yeah.
Now I live here in Denver. Just needed to get away.
Nice. And yeah, Ron, you reached out to me cold one day on Instagram, right? And then there was like the 10,000 summit.
Yeah.
And basically, like, we've just been homies since. And I think that's one of the coolest things because now we can train together. And now we're going to deadlift together.
Yeah.
But you're getting into powerlifting, right?
Yeah, it's something I really want to do. Just get into a little bit more strength training. I, of course, grew up doing all the bodybuilding type training, but just being able to feel a little bit stronger and more confident in my compound lifts.
And you pull sumo?
Yes, I do.
Perfect. Yeah, so today we have, I technically have 8 singles programmed. My top 4 are a little bit more heavy to be challenging. So we're gonna be doing some single work for you as well. And I want you to get a bit heavier so I can actually see your lifting when it gets a bit heavier and see where the thresholds might be being hit when it comes to your mechanics.
Yeah.
But let's go get into it.
All right.
So before we dove into our deadlifts, we did 2 different moves for warm-up. We did this move here, which I took from Vernon Griffith. He's an awesome resource on Instagram. Check him out. But basically, this is helping out our hip and thoracic mobility. And then we also did a quad biased walking lunge to focus on just basically getting those quads moving since they're going to be highly active, especially when breaking the floor in our deadlift. Now, when it comes to warm-ups, what I want to stress, and a lesson that I would love for you to take away from this video, is that I think it's very important for every lifter and athlete to have like a toolbox of warm-up modalities that they use for different days. So basically, for this heavier deadlift session day, like this warm-up that I did is not like the warm-up I did the week prior or the week even after this or this week where I took 535 for a single. This warm-up was specific for how I was feeling on that day. So that being said, when we look around on Instagram, YouTube, and all these other social platforms where people are sharing content, especially with exercise, we have to be very careful that we don't just take some cookie cutter thing that someone else created and then expect it to work for us in every single setting. I think it's really important for every lifter and athlete to figure out how to warm up accordingly for their own needs. And to be quite honest, I just hate the bullshit of like, oh, this is the perfect warm up for this. Like, okay, but like, let's apply some context. For who, how are they training, how do they need to prep, what do they need to work on before they actually start moving the weight at hand that they are going for. So that's my ramble and rant on that, because it's very annoying seeing these athletes and influencers share shit and then give basically no context or teach lifters how to physically build their own warm-ups. The moral of the story is this: everyone needs to individualize their warm-ups for the task demands at day. If you are somebody who just wants to use load management as warm-up, great. If you want to do a bit more, awesome. There is no one-size-fits-all warm-up. And I hate the dogmatic views of like, oh, you need to do this to prep for this. Like, fuck that. As long as your warm-up is not cutting into your working set energy or causing your performance to dip in your working sets or making your workout go so long to where you're now messing up your daily life schedule, your warm-up is likely fine. And it's going to be individual for your needs. And there isn't a one-size-fits-all. So warm up in a means that helps you get prepped. But that all being said, let's go ahead and dive into this deadlift day. So it was super fun getting heavier with Ron. This 405 was my first working set, and then we ramped up to 525, so you'll see the sets start to get a little bit heavier on my end. And with Ron's training too, he hadn't actually gone this heavy in a minute, so it was really cool getting to see how his body's sequenced and basically self-organized at heavier loads. We focused a lot on him with his attention to detail off of the floor, more specifically how he was engaging the quads and leveraging his hips to pop that bar off the floor as he was getting heavier. And I have to say, with my programming right now, we are cycling basically heavy squats with conditioning focused squats with split squats, and then for deadlifts we're doing conditioning deadlifts with heavier deadlifts like every other week basically. So every week is a little bit different, and the strength has been like really moving in the right direction, and I'm super stoked on that because like the deadlift has been absolutely flying and the squat is building too, and it's going to be super exciting to continue to ramp up as we could progress basically through December into January. The 555 feet I want to tackle at the end of March, early April, so we still have a lot of work to do. But like with the deadlifts, I think I'm going to shoot for a new PR in the next week, so not next week but the week following. I'm going to try to vlog that as well. But that being said, this was 5:15. It moved really freaking well. And then we had Ron here take 4:05, which he hadn't taken in a while. And man, it was a fight for him, but fuck, he delivered. It was a great set for him. I'm super stoked he crushed that. And then here we have 5:25. This was my top set from this training day. And then basically 2 weeks had passed. Yes, that's how long it's been since I've uploaded this. And we took 5:35 this week on deads. And this was probably, I think, my strongest deadlift to date when it comes to like how 5:35 moved and felt. So I'm super stoked to go for a new PR very, very soon. So this is one of my favorite RDL variations. This band is going to help us cue a stronger hip hinge, but also as we come into hip extension through that concentric movement phase, we're going to get additional work for the glutes. So it's just, I think, a way more productive way to perform RDLs. Now I noticed with Ron's RDLs, he was reaching a lot, which I actually think is a common mistake for a lot of lifters. So in the next clip, I'm basically having him use a dowel as a cue to focus on his hinge mechanics. And if you are somebody who wants to improve your hinge, that's a powerful tool, or use the wall for doing so.
Untapping this with your hips. Okay. Once you've hit that, come back up. Good. Hips, 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 hips. Right there. Yes, man. Good. Hips, 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 hips. Yes. And if you want, you can widen your stance a little bit if that feels more comfortable.
Okay.
That was a little bit too wide.
Oh yeah, there. I'll just go back
Good.
a little bit narrow.
Good. Head neutral. Yes. Good. Hips, 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 hips. Good. Yes, man. Hips, 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 hips. Yes. Good. More hip break at the top. Don't start with the knees. One more. Hips. Yes, right there. Back up. Good, man. Done.
So, full disclosure, this vlog was actually supposed to be finished last weekend, and I actually lifted with Ron about almost a half a week ago to a full week ago. But life happens and I had to push everything back, and it's just been such a grind on the other business fronts. And full disclosure too, Nikki and I are moving, so we've been in the whole moving phase, packing phase, the pretty much over the top stress phase, and it's been absolutely miserable. You could probably see the bags under my eyes from stress and lack of sleep. But to wrap this vlog up, I wanted to talk about two different things. Number one, some lessons that I've learned in my first 8 weeks of hybrid training. And then number two, talk about some of the ways that I'm structuring my training now. So if you are somebody who is diving into hybrid training, how could you structure your lifts and runs to be a bit more strategic so you're not running yourself into the ground? So the first lesson that I have learned with hybrid training thus far is that in those first 6 to 8-ish weeks, when you're really acclimating to adding more mileage on top of your lifting on a weekly basis, do not be afraid to give yourself an extra day to recover. So week 2-ish, week 3-ish, I was firing on all cylinders. I was really excited to dive into this, and I kind of hit a wall pretty quick where I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot run these really tough 5Ks and these longer runs and then go lift and not feel completely beat down, especially as I still acclimate. My calves, tib interior were so sore all the time that giving myself a little bit more time to recover was actually essential. And I shifted gears and did that throughout week 3 to 8. And now my training has been way more productive. So I cannot stress enough that if you are diving into being a more hybrid style athlete, do not be afraid to give yourself a little bit longer to recover, especially as you acclimate, than you might think you need. If you are feeling run down in the first couple of weeks, you are going to feel that if you continue to push throughout the weeks where you're starting to ramp up even more. So be conscious of your recovery early on, and your future self will, I guarantee, thank you for that. The second lesson is that if you're attacking two-a-days, nutrition timing matters. So I think there's this weird connotation in the fitness world where it's we went down two different extremes. There's the extreme over here where it's you need to have whey protein within 30 minutes of your workout, or it wasn't productive. And then we were no, nutrition timing doesn't probably matter that much for this type of athlete and lifter. But that being said, we need to apply context here. So if we're doing a 2-a-day, nutrition timing absolutely matters. The way we are fueling and recovering in between those sessions is paramount to that second session success. Whether you're lifting or running first and then doing the other ladder, it doesn't matter. Make sure you are consuming quality protein after that workout. Make sure you're getting enough carbs in, electrolytes, and make sure you're drinking enough water. So that being said,
For the person who's just recreationally going to the gym here and there, nutrition timing probably isn't the biggest deal, but if you are a hybrid athlete doing 2-a-days or trying to really ramp up the intensity of what you're doing and the intent in which you're doing it, nutrition timing absolutely matters, and it can be absolutely paramount to make sure that your second workout is successful and you're able to push your hardest. If you're not fueling properly in between those, I guarantee you that second workout is going to feel miserable. Don't do what I did the one day and go lift really heavy, drink a bunch of coffee and work, and then go try to run, because you man hit a wall really, really bad that day. The third lesson to think about with your hybrid style training is when you are programming running and lifting, make sure that the blocks make sense together. And that if you're going to like ramp up the intensity in both, make sure there's like a peaking like kind of style to it and a goal focused timeline that you're working with. If not, it's a surefire way to kind of run yourself into the ground, especially if you're firing on all cylinders and you're not necessarily trying to peak for something in particular. So what I mean by this is, like, let's say we have a block of lifting where we're super focused on like maximal strength. Realistically, unless we are trying to peak for something, we probably shouldn't have our lifting programming also peaking us at the same time. That's going to be pushing into the same energy stores for a lot of the training, and it could leave us kind of like almost like feeling dead without necessarily intending to. So if we're sinking a lot of energy and focus into like strength work in the gym, more than likely for our running, we might want to have more of like an easy/moderate focus. And if we're ramping up, let's say, our running intensity and we're getting into a block where we're starting to really dial in and like focus on like our faster mile times or really pushing the mileage, then we might want to crank the volume down of our lifting block and make it more of a means of like holding on to what we have and just maintaining versus trying to push strength while also trying to push this. So making sure that when you are programming, especially for being a hybrid athlete, that your blocks make sense, especially if you're a natural athlete and you're trying to pursue this hybrid style training for a longer period of time. We have to make sure these blocks make sense with one another. And so that's why, like, for example, I'm in like a phase of lifting right now that my coach calls mechanical damage phase, where basically like we are really pushing the strength envelope and we're also really pushing the hypertrophy envelope. And that's because our running is still kind of moderate. We're not really ramping it up yet. But as this running starts to ramp up, we're going to then bring down the volume and hypertrophy focus here, but then just keep our focus on mostly just strength work and maintaining what we've built. So making sure those blocks make sense is absolutely paramount. If you have any questions on that, drop a comment down below and I will help accordingly. So now let's talk about how I am personally sequencing my lifting and running workouts to make sure that I'm not running myself into the ground on a weekly basis. All right, guys, I think I'm gonna wrap up the vlog here. I will have another episode up in the next week to week and a half. expect you, man, to be stressed over the next couple of weeks, and if uploads are a little bit slower, it's because I still am trying to dial in where we're going to be living next and setting that all up and etc., and like getting this place pretty much clean and presentable enough to film here if I have to over the next couple of weeks. But that all being said, I will see you guys in the next one. I have some really exciting news coming. It's going to be coming on the 20th or the 21st of this month. I can't say what it is, but it's like literally a dream of mine over the last decade being fulfilled, and it's like it's actually mind-numbing. I can't even process it, but we will know more about that soon enough. But as always, guys, I appreciate you for watching. If you've made it this far, you are a real one, and I sincerely love and appreciate you. But that being said, guys, drop a like on the video, drop subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one.